Okay, back from a pretty long trip to the mountains out in Colorado. I ended up out there quite a bit longer than I anticipated, and I ended up being quite a bit more busy than I anticipated. So I did not get any videos done, but we're back. Did have a chance to visit a Zen monastery for a few days and be very quiet, and that was very very useful and pretty great to have some time in the mountains and be quiet. It was nice. But so we're getting back into this now, and I have no intention of stopping, and I really didn't even intend on taking that break. But here, so let's just we'll get right back into this, and see what happens here. It's kind of new again for a second, so we'll see. All right, we're on chapter 12, and it's the nature of memory. This is a long chapter, so I don't think we're going to get the whole thing done today, but we'll get it started. The great self and the little selves. What is memory, and how does it work? By what means do we recover the past, whether near or remote? For after all, whether the past be near or remote, belonging to this or to any anterior life, the means which govern its recovery must be similar, and we require a theory which will include all cases of memory, and at the same time will enable us to understand each particular case. The first step towards obtaining a definite and intelligible theory is a comprehension of our own composition of the self with its sheaths and their interrelation. And we may here briefly restate the main facts in the foregoing chapters which directly bear on the problem of memory. We must bear constantly in mind the facts that our consciousness is a unit, and that this unit of consciousness works through various sheaths which impose upon it a false appearance of multiplicity. And I guess kind of look at that like, the Trinity, it works together in the human body, and it's all working together. So the innermost or most tenuous of these sheaths is inseparable from the unit of consciousness. In fact, it is this sheath which makes it a unit. This unit is the monad dwelling on the Anapadaka plane, and we can see that over here. This is the second plane from the top. But for all practical purposes, we may take it as the familiar inner man, the triatom, Atmabuddhi Manas, thought of as apart from the Atmic, Buddhic, and monastic sheaths. This unit of consciousness manifests through, abides in, sheaths belonging to the 5 planes of its activity, and we call it the self working in its sheaths. All right, so now we're really starting to define technically the self and what's making this what it's constructed of. This is brilliant and right on time. So we must think then of a conscious self dwelling in vehicles that vibrate. The vibration of these vehicles correspond on the inner side of man with the changes in consciousness on the side of the self. So, right away, before we get started here, it's like, we're at one. Many human beings are at one with the body currently, and that's what we call ourself, is the body, the physical body. But there's so much more going on here. because the body is not, it's not permanent. It's not what is eternal, right? So we cannot accurately speak of vibrations of consciousness because vibrations can only belong to the material side of things, the form side, and only loosely can we speak of a vibrating consciousness. We have changes in consciousness corresponding with vibrations in sheaths. The question of the vehicles or bodies in which consciousness, the self, is working is all important as regards memory. The whole process of recovering more or less remote events is a question of picturing them in the particular sheath, of shaping part of the matter of the sheath into their likeness, in which consciousness is working at the time. In the self, as a fragment of the universal self, which for our purpose we can take to be the logos, although in verity the logos is but a portion of the universal self, is present everything. For in the universal self is present all which has taken place, is taking place, and will take place in the universe. All this, and an illimitable more, is present in the universal consciousness. Let us think only of a universe and its logos. We speak of him as omnipresent and omniscient. Now, fundamentally, that omnipresence and omniscience are in the individualized self as being one with the logos, but we must put in here a but with a difference, the difference consisting in this, that while in the separated self, as self, apart from all vehicles, that omnipresence and omniscience reside by virtue of his unity with the one self, the vehicles in which he dwells have not yet learned to vibrate and answer to his changes of consciousness as he turns his attention to one or another part of his contents. Hence we say that all exists in him potentially, and not as the logos actually. All the changes which go on in consciousness of the logos are reproducible in the separated self, which is an indivisible part of his life, but the vehicles are not yet ready as media of manifestation. Because of the separation of form, because of this closing in of the separate or individualized self, these possibilities which are within it as part of the universal self are latent, not manifest, are possibilities, not actualities. As in every atom which goes to the making up of a vehicle, there are illimitable possibilities of vibration, so in every separated self, there are illimitable possibilities of changes of consciousness. Whoa. So if all of a sudden, you start vibrating at a completely different, rate, realm, and all this, at least, we've read this, so we know at this point kind of what's going on here. This is a really huge thought to ponder on here. So we do not find in the atom at the beginning of a solar system an illimitable variety of vibrations, but we learn that it possesses a capacity to acquire an illimitable variety of vibrations. It acquires these in the course of its evolution as it responds continually to vibrations playing upon its surface. And there's some alluding to some friction there. At the end of a solar system, an immense number of the atoms in it have reached a stage of evolution in which they can vibrate and answer to any vibration touching them that arises within the system. Then, for that system, these atoms are said to be perfected. An atom the perfect atom. Can't make it up. The same thing is true for the separated or individualized selves. All the changes taking place in the consciousness of a logos are represented in that universe and take shape as forms in that universe. All these are also within the perfected consciousness in that universe, and any of these changes can be reproduced in any one of them. Here is memory, the reappearance, the reincarnation in matter of anything that has been within that universe and therefore ever is in the consciousness of its logos and in the consciousness which consciousness is, which are parts of his consciousness. Although we think of the self as separate as regards all other selves, we must ever remember it is inseparate as regards the one self, the logos. His life is not shut out from any part of his universe, and in him we live and move and have our being, open ever to him, filled with his life. And regardless of what our consciousness level is at the very present, you and I, and we are we're part of it, right? You've been included in it, and so if our bubble pops today, we understand more about this. This is important stuff. As the self puts on vehicle after vehicle of matter, its powers of gaining knowledge become, with each additional vehicle, more circumscribed but also more definite. Arrived on the physical plane, consciousness is narrowed down to the experiences which can be received through the physical body, and chiefly through those openings which we call the sense organs. These are avenues through which knowledge can reach the imprisoned self, though we often speak of them as shutting out knowledge when we think of the capacities of the subtler vehicles. The physical body renders perception definitive and clear, much as a screen with a minute hole in it allows a picture of the outside world to appear on a wall that would otherwise show a blank surface. Rays of light are truly shut off from the wall, but by that very shutting off, those allowed to enter form a clear, defined picture. So that was the first part of this, and this has a number of parts, but that is super interesting stuff. I think let's do this second part and see how much longer we go. I'm going to keep these videos shorter maybe than they've been. Changes in the vehicles and in consciousness. Let us now see what happens as regards the physical vehicle and the reception of an impression, and then the subsequent recall of that impression in the memory of it. A vibration from outside strikes on an organ of sense and is transmitted to the appropriate center in the brain. A group of cells in the brain vibrates, and that vibration leaves the cells in a state somewhat different from the one in which they were previous to its reception. The trace of that response is a possibility for the group of cells that has once vibrated in a particular way, and it retains for the rest of its existence as a group of cells the possibility of again vibrating in that same way without again receiving a stimulus from the outside world. All right, now we're understanding the essence of experience. All right, this is fantastic. Each repetition of identical vibration strengthens the possibility, each leaving its own trace, but many such repetitions will be required to establish a self-initiated repetition. The cells come nearer to this possibility of a self-initiated vibration by each repetition compelled from the outside. And here we have what was going on here in the experience of the lower three worlds. The cells come nearer to this possibility of self each time they're compelled from the outside. But this vibration has not stopped with the physical cells. It has been transmitted inwards to the corresponding cell or group of cells in the subtler vehicles and has ultimately produced a change in consciousness. This change, in its turn, reacts on the cells, and a repetition of the vibrations is initiated from within by the change in consciousness, and this repetition is a memory of the objects which started the series of vibrations. The response of the cells to the vibration from outside, a response compelled by the laws of the physical universe, give to the cells the power of responding to a similar impulse, though feebler, coming from within. A little power is exhausted in each moving of matter in a new vehicle, and hence a gradual diminution of the energy in the vibration. Less and less is exhausted as the cells repeat similar vibrations in response to new impacts from without, the cells answering more readily with each repetition. Therein lies the value of the without, or the outside. It wakes up in the matter more easily than by any other way, the possibility of response being more closely akin to the vehicles than the within. The change caused in consciousness also leaves the consciousness more ready to repeat that change than it was first to yield it, and each such change brings the consciousness nearer to the power to the initiate a similar change. Power to initiate a similar change. Looking back into the dawnings of consciousness, we see that the imprisoned cells go through innumerable experiences before a self-initiated change in consciousness occurs. But bearing this in mind as a fact, we can leave these earlier stages and study the workings of consciousness at a more advanced point. We must also remember that every impact reaching the innermost sheaths and giving rise to a change in consciousness is followed by a reaction, the change in consciousness causing a new series of vibrations from within outwards. There is the goings inwards to the self, followed by the rippling outwards from the self, the first due to the object and giving rise to what we call a perception, and the second due to the reaction of the self causing what we call a memory. A number of sense impressions coming through sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smells run up from the physical vehicle through the astral to the mental. There, they are coordinated into a complex unity as a musical chord is composed of many notes. This is the special work of the mental body. It receives many streams and synthesizes them into one. It builds many impressions into a perception, a thought, a complex unity. All right, let's do this. Let's do this third part here. It's pretty short. We'll just keep it going. Let us try to catch this complex thing after it has gone inwards and has caused a change in consciousness, an idea. The change it has caused gives rise to new vibrations in the vehicles, reproducing those it had caused on its inward way, and in each vehicle it reappears in a fainter form. It is not strong, vigorous, or vivid as when its component parts flash from the physical to the astral and from the astral to the mental. It reappears in the mental in a fainter form, the copy of that which the mental sent inwards, but the vibrations feebler, as the self receives from it a reaction, for the impact of a vibration on touching each vehicle must cause a reaction. That reaction is far feebler than the original action and will therefore seem less real than that action. It makes a lesser change in consciousness, and that lessening represents inevitably a less reality. And I think if we're really following along with this, we can totally sense this. So long as the consciousness is too little responsive to be aware of any impacts that do not come through the impulsive vigor of the physical, It is literally more in touch with the physical than with any other sheath, and there will be no memories of ideas, but only memories of perceptions, of pictures of outside objects caused by vibrations of the nervous matter of the brain reproducing themselves in the related astral and mental matter. These are literally pictures in the mental matter, as are the pictures on the retina of the eye. And the consciousness perceives these pictures, sees them, as we may truly say, since the seeing of the eye is only a limited expression of its perceptive power. As the consciousness draws a little away from the physical, turning attention more to the modifications in its inner sheaths, it sees these pictures reproduced in the brain from the astral sheath by its own reaction passing outwards, and there is the memory of sensations. The picture arises in the brain by the reaction of the change in consciousness and is recognized there. This recognition implies that the consciousness has withdrawn largely from the physical to the astral vehicle and is working therein. Okay, boy, oh boy, is this not explaining how we move through realms or planes? And how important is it to recognize and be able to explain, not just to ourselves, but likely at some point others, how you're moving through realms or how you're moving through planes. This is so worthy of rereading and testing ourselves and awareness of our of where we're thinking at or where we're at. Okay, now let's see where this goes here. We're going to keep going and keep moving through these planes. As we've started from the bottom, so we're having these experiences down here. Now, as this is happening, we're talking about moving to the astral plane, and this is being stored, right? This essence of this is being synthesized on the mental. So let's see where we go from here. These are literally pictures in the mental matters or pictures on the retina of the eye. Okay. All right, this recognition, the pictures arise in the brain by the reaction of the change in consciousness and is recognized there. So I hope we're really understanding what we're reading here. As the consciousness draws a little away from the physical, turning attention more to the modifications in its inner sheaths, it sees these pictures reproduced in the brain from the astral sheath by its own reaction passing outwards. And there is the memory of sensations. This picture arises in the brain by the reaction of the change in consciousness and is recognized there. This recognition implies that the consciousness has withdrawn largely from the physical to the astral vehicle and is working therein. So we do this all the time. Most people are doing this all the time. You're recalling scenarios, situations, sensations, and stay in there, in that emotion, in these emotional places. The human consciousness is thus working at the present time and is therefore full of memories, these memories being reproductions in the physical brain of past pictures caused by reactions from consciousness. In a lowly evolved human type, these pictures are pictures of past events in which the physical body was concerned. memories of hunger and thirst and of their gratification, of sexual pleasures, and so on, things in which the physical body took an active part. And a higher type, in which the consciousness is working more in the mental vehicle, the pictures in the astral body will draw more of its attention. These pictures are shaped in the astral body by the vibrations coming outwards from the mental and are perceived as pictures by the consciousness as it withdraws itself more into the mental body as its immediate vehicle. So as this process goes on, and the more awakened consciousness responds to vibrations initiated from outside on the astral plane by the astral objects, these objects grow real and become distinguishable from the memories, pictures in the astral body caused by the reactions from consciousness. Now, this is definitely worth a reread at some point here. Let us note in passing that with the memory of an object goes hand in hand a picture of the renewal of the keener experience of the object by physical contact, and this we call anticipation. And the more complete the memory of an event, the more complete this anticipation. So that the memory will sometimes even cause in the physical body the reactions which normally accompany the contact with the external object. And we may savor in anticipation pleasures which are not within present reach of the body. Thus the anticipation of savory food will cause the mouth to water. This fact will again appear when we reach the completion of our theory of memory. So we are learning stuff that is just so critical here to know where we're operating individually at the time, where our awareness is located, and then we can be more aware of ourselves and see where we're kind of retrograding to, or where we're operating out of, and observe our own patterns here. This is truly brilliant stuff that we're into now. What is memory? I think we're going to leave it here for today, and we will get into this what is memory tomorrow. I mean, what we just covered is incredible, and it should be something that we ponder on for a while and attempt to make ourselves aware. So, all right, I'm going to leave it there. It's good to be back at it, and I anticipate being here again daily, and we're going to keep our studying going. Okay, have a good one.